Hello. Welcome to Outlaw Redemption the Podcast, a Western folk rock opera. I'm Bill Wardlow, your host. My co-host, RPG, Ronald Allen Cordy.
Thank you, Bill.
So, coming up on some vengeance here.
Yeah, let's just stop and take measure of what just happened.
Yeah.
We noticed at the end of the very last song, we heard, which happens to be a Schofield pistol,
Yeah.
go off. So let's set it up exactly where we're at in the story. So what had really gone on, a little further information that's really not in this album, but at the time, this happens to be the day that the old fellow from the farm dies, from the barn, livery. Whilst at the funeral, Hezekiah's at the funeral, and then he's hanging around over there. Prairie Fire comes to the barn to come find Hezekiah, to comfort him, because his adopted father figure had just passed away. Well, about this time, old Rex sees her heading that way, and he seems to follow her because he happens to know that Hezekiah's on the other side of town. So he follows her to the barn and gives her the old rigmarole, and she turns him down again and again and again, and finally, he decides he's just going to take it. What are they going to do to him anyway?
That's right. He's the Baron's son.
He is the Baron's son. This is his town, and what his dad says is law. And it's easy. He's got 2 or 3 buddies back there that attest she was coming on to him. She was asking for it. Well, unfortunately for him, we take off on this song. Hezekiah just happens to make it back to the barn right after this man had taken advantage of this poor girl. Smacked her, tore her dress, left her laying on the ground. Hezekiah comes in and jumps him. Them two start to going, and he had him. Because like most cowards that run their mouth, when they ain't got all their back, they're just more mouth. Like I said, alligator mouths seem to go with Tweety bird asses. That's how I hear. And of course, bullies always attack people that are weaker.
Right.
Well, this time, Hezzy just goes, and then he realized that somehow he's going to get his way out of it and go on. And he decided enough is enough. Pulls his gun and shoots him. Had him beat down, and then decides it ain't going to happen again. He'll never touch her again. That generational curse of rage overtakes him. And he had no right to shoot him. He knew that. The law would say. He was supposed to go had him beat down, had him subdued. He's supposed to pull his gun on him, march him over to the jail, and throw him in and let law take over. But, again, that's what happens with rage,
right.
Reaction. As we talked about in last, his reaction was to eliminate the threat forever. So he shoots him. Unfortunately, that's about the time, hearing the guns and the fighting and the squabble, and that's when the minions of Rex come running in, and what they see is her laying on the ground, and they see Hezekiah shooting Rex. So they whip their guns out, and they start firing. He starts firing back. They go back and forth, and they realize they ain't worth dying, so they take off to town screaming rape and murder. Well, Hezekiah, as they're gone, there we got Hezekiah, and he's sitting there looking around going, what to do, and she's down there hurt and just didn't know what to do. I mean, seeing her hurt's what caused him to go off, So the thing he knew to do best is take her to the preacher, take her home. So he puts her on a horse, they get there, they make sure she's okay, she comes back to consciousness. He tells the preacher everything that happened, and they said, it doesn't really matter. You're not gonna get away with this. Your only chance is to get the hell out of here.
So on the run he goes.
So on the run he goes. Or as the song says, if you hang around here, you're just going to get hung.
Yeah.
So that's the name of our song. This chapter is called Hanging Around to Get Hung. And, but as we, you know, sometimes you would, I like what he says, before I lose her, I'd rather lose my life.
Yeah.
So that was his whole mindset about, I know I'm going to hang around. I know if I get caught, they're going to hang me. But I'd rather have her and lose my life than not have her.
Right.
So that's the quandary our poor boy's in. But this song is, so there's a couple real neat things too, musically speaking, about all this. I like how some of these songs really speak about like the song itself, its style, all of that. Hopefully it's part of the visual. So we started off on this thing, first of all, in our narration. It was a little unusual. It was just me and Sarah on a violin and me on a classical guitar. The funny thing that happened is all the notes are right. I decided to play it in 3/4 time out of nowhere. Sarah jumps in and she gave me a quizzical look and then just kind of started playing, and I didn't know why. And we just went on through and got it down. We got done, and she goes, "You realize that was a different time?" And I'd realized. So when we go back to Whiskey and Laudanum, that was a 3/4 time or 6/8, or I'm not sure how that goes, but 1 2 3 1 2 3 waltz, right?
Yeah.
So this is sort of the same thing. I started off doing the 1 2 3 1 2 3, and I played all the notes in 1 2 3 1 2 3 time, and Sarah just played it, and we got done. It's like, dude, what should we do with that? Because we could have easily, it would have been nothing to record it again.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, but somehow that really worked.
It worked. Sounded good.
And so, and it was played right, and all the notes were right and everything. So we decided to keep it. So that was a little twist in there. And then we break into the song, and the very first thing we hear is a whip crack.
Yeah.
Which I love. We got that a couple times. There's a couple neat things we did in this song, but we ran it basically. This was another 2 songs in a row where the song, it really picks up pace here. We're riding a horse. We're going down, and we used a makeup of basically the stripped down main band.
Yeah.
And so I really liked it. Jake and Tucker. So these guys are so good, man. I love it because a lot of things I do are very theatrical. I use my hands. I explain pictures and scenes, and we've talked about this in this podcast. And I say, this is what this music is supposed to say. This is the mood it's supposed to set. It's supposed to be like the voices of the spirit of Whiskey and Laudanum and all that. And this
But
one,
not a lot of musical direction.
Yeah, just this was one of the ones where I did actually go. I wanted to go da 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 da, and how to roll it off into the end. And Tucker picked up on that real well. And but these guys understood what we were going after.
Yeah.
And so we were able to write in that fashion, which I thought was really good. And we're on the same page.
This was probably the heaviest.
Yeah.
If you can even say heavy, but it's
this one in Long Descent to Hell.
Rock and guitar,
yeah.
A lot of distortion, and a very upbeat gallop from Mason.
That's what this is supposed to be, a horse riding the hell out of town.
And I got to the point of mixing this song and started pulling it together, and it was missing drive. There was all those elements there, but it was missing a drive that I just couldn't figure out what it was. And, I felt like at the time it really needed a kit drum and that driving snare. Where we ended up on it was a cowbell all the way through it, right where the snare should be.
Well, let's be really specific about that cowbell. It was the very last thing recorded on the project.
It was.
That was the last final, excuse me. But that's why I find it interesting. It was the last final flick of icing on top of the cake.
Because we went round and round. I mixed that song 4 or 5 times, and I just couldn't get the drive out of it that I was looking for.
Yeah, I think the thing, it was more drivey than gallopy. We wanted horse. This guy's on a horse ride, grabbing the nearest horse and riding like hell to get out of town. And that's running away from being hung. That's the whole premise of this. The whole feel of this song's got to be that. I'm on my horse riding as fast as I can for the hills because they're about to hang me. And you're right. And, you know, we went and grabbed a snare, too.
Yeah.
I brought a snare over, just a snare, just to add that little snap. And then we had...
Which is on a couple different songs.
Yeah, which we did that in a couple of... We ended up putting the snare on a couple of... in the percussion. Between Bill and Mason... because we were for actual drum, we spent a lot of time on the djembe voice.
Yeah.
And the djembe voice can be like really boing, 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 and wide and echoey, voluminous like that. And sometimes you just need that little extra snap that you get from tambourine, when tamborine's just a little too much and it's jingly. You put that snare and it just gets that little pop, pop, pop that comes through.
And a little more beef and,
yeah.
And
so that was really cool. But I think so we had that down pretty good. Then another element that we added into this is we had the chorus of claps.
Yeah.
So we have clap sections going on in this, just interspersed in there. But there's 16 of us. It's a 16 sets of claps there.
Yeah, I think there was only actually 4 of us.
4 of us. We did 4. we had 4 of us. We did 4 takes to be 16 claps.
Yeah,
and each take was different, so we weren't doubling in the sense of just copying what we did. We actually clap, so it was so that they would come out with all of the sound that it would be 16 different hand smacks.
Yeah,
which is exactly what it was, and 4 of us did that. So that came out really well. But then again, at the end, we were like. And then I think the actual.
I think we were in the mastering stage.
We were
when I finally added that.
Yeah, I think actually
cowbell.
I said. I think I said it. Maybe I said something. I said. I just reenacted the freaking Saturday Night Live skit.
Oh.
I said,
yeah.
This thing needs one thing: more cowbell. And I mean, it was perfect because I mean that was just something farmy, cloppy, pow, just something to drive this feeling.
And
of
it
riding
really
a horse.
added a lot of drive to the song.
And that's
really changed the whole feel of the song.
I wanted horseshoes hitting off rock and hard ground,
Yeah.
And that's the drive. I mean, riding for your life kind of feel, and. When we put that in there, to me, it spoke, we're on the farm now. We're in the West. We're on a horse. I can feel it. And then, of course, the title, if I keep on hanging around, I know, well, I'm going to get hung. Wow. And again, I can't go as good as... This was almost as good a co-lead thing going on between Jake and Tucker. Their chemistry was just incredible. They're just natural instincts mesh so well. That's what's really amazing because, like I said, their chemistry is good. I played with them live, and they have. But I just wanted no apprehension about the other guy, just because I wanted to see what we could get. Bill feels the same way. I mean, this is just. The cool thing, as Bill says, get it all, make multiple takes because you don't have to use it. But if you ain't got it, you ain't going to use it.
That's true.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I mean, when you're sculpting, you start with a large block of rock. When you get done, you have trimmed, you have fit, you have put things together, and you have found it, and you have sculpted it. And sometimes what you're putting in there, that particular is so broad and perfect the first time, it just one hit, and you've got a perfect line. And there are a lot of takes in this that sculptor put his chisel to the piece and hit it, and then it just laid a perfect line out that was supposed to be there. And then there are times, we come in and we do detail work.
Yeah.
And, the features on the face of a great sculpture. Yeah.
Not a lot, though, on this project.
No,
Not a lot.
but I think we did, it's just knowing when and where.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much we when I say we take or added, it wasn't that we corrected things. We just didn't turn this off right here, bring it back in right here. But what we were bringing in and out was raw takes. They were raw expressions. It's just sometimes you got to be careful about how many voices are talking at the same time when it can take away from the one voice you want to say the most.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we did. We decided when we wanted a chorus of those voices and when we wanted more singular voices speaking what we were trying to say musically at that time. But again, these guys have done such a good job. I mean, they knew the feel of what we were making. I mean, to understand what we're making and to make the music
and again,
speak.
Like we've said over and over, Jake and Tucker didn't hear each other's takes.
Yeah.
That also goes for the tone.
Yeah.
And they were coming up with their own tone, and it matched so perfectly.
I just, again, one of those things that we talked about being just too coincidental.
Yeah.
The stuff we had to work with. As far as editing and all that, we had such quality things to work with.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. There wasn't just one good take. There were multiple good takes. And sometimes, which did we use the best one? That could be a matter of opinion from one person to the next, because some of them were, I don't know which one's best. I kind of like that part, but it was like, but I like that too. So,
right.
Yeah. So what we decided in most cases,
a lot of different ways.
Yeah,
on this.
and we could have gone back and forth
with
and
it being
spliced them, but we didn't. We tried to stick with runs.
With it being as big of a project as it was, we were making decisions and just going with it.
Yeah.
We didn't spend a lot of time.
We knew, and then because we also knew we were going to re-edit it all once it was down. But
we didn't spend a lot of time when we were editing, looking at different takes and stuff. We heard the one.
We heard the one. We put it in, and then we worked on that.
Let's do that.
And if there was a problem, like I said, I swear I listened to this thing 150 times during that time.
Yeah, I probably quadrupled that.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, just sit there and listen to it over. Like I called in a horde of crows, a murder of crows.
Yeah.
Isn't that what they are? Murder?
Yeah, it's a murder of crows.
A murder of crows. I called a murder of crows into my house because I listen to this so often. And in the what is that? The Whiskey and Laudanum, the chapter narration. It ends with crows, which is really pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
And then in this song, we decided to use some whip cracks, because, again...
And we ended up putting it throughout the song. We were just initially going to use it at the beginning. Yeah,
and it fitted. It just was like in the choruses, the drive parts. It was perfect because, again, the picture. My whole thing is when I made this, this was a movie. This is a movie. In my head, this whole thing's a movie. And, those things... Words paint pictures, this is a scene, and man, you putting that in there just reiterates. Got the cowbell and all that drive going. These you can just feel and hear these and see these hoof beats clicking off the rocks, running up that hill, up through the mountain, and you can hear that the rain slashing on the left and right of the horse. Yeah, all the way through. I can see that scene. I can see that scene from that music.
Absolutely.
And that's why these guys they got that vision. And I think that's what there was so much painting, so much filming, if you will, creation done with instruments and being on the same page.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was just wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah. So here's chapter 8.
Chapter 8, Hanging Around to Get Hung, RPG and the Kentucky Tumbleweeds. seeing his love so violated, well, Hezzy just snapped. Well, that spirit of wrath that once overran OB, now he just ran right over Hezzy. If he could have just stopped after beating Rex, got the marshal, but Hezzy knew Rex would have just gotten away with it. And Hezzy made sure that that bastard would never harm her again. Well, that's when Rex's suck-up minions, hearing all the shots, come a-running into the barn, and after a few minutes of exchanging shots, them boys ran off into town screaming rape and murder. Well, old Hezzy, he puts Prairie Flower on his horse and takes her straight to the preacher. And after telling him all the particulars, they realize that he would just be killed. Even with them knowing the truth about the rape, they'd still hang him for what he did. So they quickly packed some supplies and Hezzy heads for the hills. But it was only a few weeks before he found himself sneaking back down the hill to see that Prairie Flower.
Near the source and I'm gonna